He, a reclusive and solitary tycoon. She, a poor, exhausted young woman who fell asleep in a coffee shop, her head resting on a notebook. He finds her there, vulnerable and innocent. The image strikes him deeply. He sees not just a poor girl, but purity, dedication, and passion. Isaac's cynicism is shattered, and the millionaire feels an overwhelming awakening, falling in love with Serena's soul. Prepare for a twist, where society and the past will try to destroy the tycoon's love for the coffee shop girl, but the purity of her soul may be the only key to healing a broken heart. Watch this story until the end. You will be amazed by this story. If you like love stories, romance, subscribe to this channel, leave your comment. Every day we post videos like this, continuing. The alarm clock rang at 5:30 in the morning, as always. Serena Alvarez opened her heavy eyes, feeling her body protest against yet another day that began before sunrise. In the cramped room, she shared with her grandmother in a working-class neighborhood in Queens, New York. Every movement had to be calculated so as not to wake Grandma Maria, who had finally managed to fall asleep after a night of persistent coughing. Serena got up silently, her bare feet touching the cold concrete floor. 27 years old, and still sleeping in the same bunk bed she had used since childhood, now with the sagging mattress marking every broken spring in her back. She grabbed the clothes folded on the chair, always the same dark jeans and black blouse, an improvised uniform for work, and went to the tiny bathroom. In the cracked mirror, she observed her own reflection. Dark circles framed her brown eyes, and her long, straight hair needed to be tied back in a simple bun. There was no time or money for luxuries like hair salons. Every dollar was counted, weighed, destined with surgical precision. Grandma's medicine, school for her 15-year-old twin siblings, basic food, the electricity bill that always threatened to be cut off. "Rena!" Grandma's hoarse voice came from the room. "I'm going to work, Grandma. Take the medicine I left on the table, okay?" Serena kissed Grandma Maria's wrinkled forehead, feeling the heat of the fever that insisted on not going down. Another medical bill she didn't know how to pay. She grabbed the worn backpack where she carried her notebook, her only luxury, where she wrote in the early hours of the morning when she got home from her second job. The walk to the bus stop took 20 minutes. New York was still asleep at that hour, but the bakeries were already starting to turn on the lights. The crowded bus took her to downtown Manhattan, where the Daily Grind, a small coffee shop where she had landed a job 3 months earlier, was located. The salary wasn't much, but the tips helped, and the owner, Mr. Paul, sometimes let her take home the leftover bagels. By 6:30, she was already behind the counter, preparing the Italian espresso machine that was the pride of the establishment. The strong, full-bodied aroma always calmed her. There, among cups and sugar bowls, she managed to forget for a few hours the overdue bills and the worries that kept her awake. On the other side of the city, in the Upper East Side, Isaac Thorne woke up at the same time, but in completely different circumstances. The master suite of his mansion had more square footage than the entire apartment where Serena lived with her family. The automated curtains opened, revealing the impeccably manicured garden, where gardeners were already working, even at that hour. Isaac got out of the king-size bed, his muscles tense after yet another sleepless night. At 42, he owned a tech empire that he had built with his own hands after inheriting a small company from his father. Thorne Investments was now one of the largest conglomerates in the country, with offices on 3 continents. But financial success didn't fill the emptiness that grew inside him every day. The 10,000-square-foot mansion echoed his solitary footsteps. Since the death of his mother 3 years earlier, the only person who really knew him, Isaac had become even more withdrawn. Relationships became transactions, friendships, strategic partnerships. Work was his only constant, his only refuge. He took a shower in the Carrara marble bathroom, put on one of the 30 identical Italian designer suits that occupied the closet, and went down for the breakfast that the housekeeper had prepared. He ate alone at the mahogany table that seated 12 people, reading financial reports on his tablet. At 7:40, he was in the back seat of the armored Mercedes, heading down FDR Drive towards his office on Wall Street. New York traffic was a constant annoyance, but Isaac had learned to use this time for international calls. It was during one of those mornings of automated routine that the driver suggested an alternative route due to an accident on the FDR. "We can go through downtown. Mr. Thorne, there's a coffee shop there that makes excellent coffee. If you'd like to stop." Isaac almost said no, as he always did. But something that morning, perhaps the weight of the loneliness that seemed more oppressive than usual, made him agree. "All right, John, let's try it." The Daily Grind was a small and cozy establishment with rustic wooden tables and plants in the windows. Isaac entered wearing sunglasses, his impeccable suit contrasting with the casual atmosphere. Some customers recognized him. His photo appeared frequently in Forbes magazine and financial newspapers, but pretended not to see him. That's when he saw her. Serena was behind the counter, focused on preparing a latte, precise and careful movements. Her dark hair tied in a bun revealed her delicate neck. There was something in her posture, a natural dignity, a serene presence that contrasted with the morning bustle of the other employees that made Isaac stop and really observe. When she looked up to serve him, Isaac felt something he hadn't experienced in years, genuine curiosity about another person. "Good morning. What can I get for you?" Her voice was soft but firm. "A double espresso, please." Serena nodded and turned to the machine. Isaac watched her economical movements, the way she treated each cup as if it were important. There was care there, attention to detail that he recognized and respected. When she served the coffee, their fingers briefly touched as she handed him the cup. It was only a second, but Isaac felt a strange energy, a connection he couldn't explain. "Thank you," he said, and for the first time in years he really meant it. Serena smiled, a tired but genuine smile. And at that moment, in the small coffee shop in downtown Manhattan, two completely different worlds touched for the first time. Isaac couldn't explain what had happened in that coffee shop. During the morning board meeting, while they were discussing the acquisition of a biotech startup, his mind kept returning to those brown eyes and the barista's tired smile. It was ridiculous. He who commanded multi-million-dollar negotiations with the coldness of a military strategist was distracted by a stranger. "Isaac?" The voice of Helen Fitzgerald, the CFO and a longtime friend, brought him back to reality. "Do you agree with the proposed valuation?" Yes, of course. He hadn't even paid attention to the numbers presented. This was unacceptable. After the meeting, Helen accompanied him to his office on the top floor of the most coveted office building on Wall Street. The windows offered a panoramic view of New York City, the city stretching endlessly in all directions. "You're acting strange today," Helen observed, crossing her legs in the Italian leather armchair. "Is something going on?" Isaac poured 2 whiskeys from a bottle of single malt that cost more than the annual salary of most Americans. Nothing important, but it was important, and that bothered him deeply. At 42, Isaac had learned to control every aspect of his life. Emotions were inconvenient variables that he had eliminated from the equation a long time ago. Since his mother's death, he had shielded himself against anything that could destabilize the empire he had built. "Helen," he said, surprising himself, "do you believe in instant connections?" The question caught his friend off guard. Helen had known him since college, had seen Isaac go through all the phases of building his empire, including the failed marriage to Amanda Cartwright, heiress to a traditional New York family that ended in divorce when she could no longer bear his obsessive dedication to work. Isaac Thorne talking about connections. "The world is going to end," she joked, but her gaze was worried. "Why?" He took a sip of the whiskey, feeling the liquid burn his throat. "Forget it. Must be exhaustion." Across town, Serena was wiping down the tables at the Daily Grind after the morning rush, but her thoughts were also troubled. The man in the impeccable suit had left a strange impression. It wasn't just the fact that he clearly didn't belong in that environment. It was something in his eyes, a loneliness that she recognized because she carried a different version of the same pain. "Serena, do you know that guy?" asked Julia, the other barista, while organizing the coffee beans. He looked familiar. "No, I've never seen him before." "I swear I've seen his face somewhere." "Magazine, newspapered." Julia frowned, trying to remember. Serena felt a chill in her stomach. People who appeared in magazines and newspapers lived in a completely different world than hers. A world where people like her were invisible, except when they served coffee or cleaned tables. At 2 in the afternoon, she left the daily grind and hurried to her second job, caring for elderly people in a private clinic in the Upper East Side. The contrast was brutal. Leaving downtown and arriving in the Upper East Side was like crossing an invisible border that separated two distinct realities of the same city. At the clinic, Serena cared for Mrs. Eleanor, an 80-year-old woman who suffered from advanced Alzheimer's. The work was emotionally draining, but the salary helped pay for her grandmother's medicine. During the long hours when Mrs. Eleanor slept, Serena managed to write in her notebook stories of ordinary people who found something extraordinary in everyday life. "Serena," called Dr. Matthews, the geriatrician in charge. "I need to talk to you." Her heart jumped. Serious conversations with employers usually meant dismissal, and she couldn't afford to lose either of her jobs. Mrs. Eleanor's family is considering transferring her to a more specialized clinic in Boston, the doctor explained. "Unfortunately, this means that your services here will no longer be needed as of next month." Serena felt the world spin. Half of her income would disappear in 4 weeks. How would she pay for her grandmother's medicine? How would she keep the twins in school? "Doctor, do you know of any other opportunities? I really need this job." "I'll see what I can do, but you know how difficult the market is." The way back home seemed longer than usual. On the crowded bus, Serena calculated and recalculated the bills, trying to find a way out that didn't exist. She arrived home at 9 in the evening, exhausted physically and emotionally. "How was your day, honey?" asked Grandma Maria, who was in the small living room helping the twins, Peter and Paul, with their homework. "Everything's fine, Grandma." Serena couldn't tell her about the impending dismissal. Her grandmother already carried enough weight with her own illness. That night, after everyone was asleep, she sat at the kitchen table with her notebook. The yellowish light of the energy-saving bulb illuminated the blank pages. Usually writing calmed her, but the words wouldn't come. Her mind kept returning to the man from the coffee shop, to his eyes that seemed to carry a different but equally real weight. 3 days later, Isaac appeared again at the daily grind. This time he arrived a little later, when the morning rush had already subsided. Serena saw him enter and felt a strange acceleration in her chest. He ordered the same double espresso and, to her surprise, sat at one of the tables near the counter. "Slow day today," he commented, while she wiped the counter. "It's normal for this hour." Her voice came out more tense than she intended. "Don't you have work?" Isaac smiled, a small but genuine smile. "I do, but sometimes I need to get out of the office to think." There was something in the way he spoke that made her want to continue the conversation, but Serena remembered where she was. He was a customer, she was an employee. There were clear boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. "Serena," he said her name, and she turned, surprised. "How do you know my name?" "It's written on your name tag," he explained, but there was something more in his gaze. "It's a beautiful name." The blush rose to her cheeks. "Thank you." Isaac drank his coffee slowly, clearly prolonging his stay. When he finally got up to leave, he stopped at the door and turned. "Serena, would you like to have coffee with me sometime? Somewhere else when you're not working?" The question caught her completely off guard. She looked around the coffee shop, checking if Mr. Paul or Julia had heard. The invitation was impossible for dozens of reasons. They were from different worlds. She had responsibilities. She couldn't get involved with customers. "I can't, sir. Sorry." Isaac nodded, but she noticed a shadow of disappointment in his eyes. "I understand. Have a good day, Serena." He left, and she stood behind the counter, her heart pounding erratically. She had said no, but a part of her wanted to have said yes. A dangerous part that dreamed of possibilities that didn't exist for people like her. 2 hours later, Julia arrived running with a magazine in her hands. "Serena, I knew I recognized that guy. Look who was flirting with you." On the cover of Forbes magazine, Isaac Thorne smiled confidently next to the headline, "The New Tech Emperor: How Isaac Thorne Revolutionized the American Market." Serena felt her legs weaken. A billionaire! She had rejected an invitation from one of the richest men in America. And somehow that made everything even more impossible and, at the same time, more confusing. Isaac didn't return to the daily grind for an entire week. Serena found herself looking at the door every morning, hoping to see him enter with that impeccable suit and the gaze full of loneliness. His absence bothered her more than it should, especially after finding out who he really was. "Are you waiting for someone?" asked Julia, watching Serena wipe the same table for the third time. "No," she lied, returning behind the counter. But life had a cruel way of interfering with plans. On Thursday of that week, Serena received a call that made her run out of the coffee shop in the middle of her afternoon shift. "Serena!" The trembling voice of Peter, one of the twins, echoed through the phone. "Grandma fell and can't get up. She's saying strange things." Serena's heart stopped. Grandma Maria had worsened in recent days, but she didn't have money to take her to a private doctor, and Medicaid had a waiting list that could last for weeks. "Call 911, Peter, I'm coming." She ran through the streets of downtown Manhattan to the bus stop, but traffic was impossible because of a protest in the downtown area. Desperate, Serena decided to walk, even knowing it would take more than an hour to get home. She was running along Broadway when she tripped. The low heel of the shoe, which was already worn out, gave way, and she fell to her knees in the middle of the sidewalk, the coffee shop uniform tearing on the rough asphalt. People passed by without stopping, part of the urban invisibility that she knew well. "Serena!" She looked up and saw Isaac standing next to a black Mercedes, his face marked by surprise and concern. For a moment, she wondered if she was hallucinating from so much stress. What happened? He knelt beside her, completely ignoring the suit that was now touching the dirty sidewalk. My grandmother." The words came out broken, mixed with tears that she didn't even realize were falling. "She fell, and I need to get home, but traffic is impossible and—" Isaac didn't hesitate. "John," he called the driver, "cancel all my appointments for the afternoon." "No, Mr. Thorne, I can't accept." "It's not a request, Serena. It's an emergency." He helped her up, his hands firm and warm. "Where do you live?" In the back seat of the Mercedes, Serena felt completely out of place. The soft leather, the silent air conditioning, the subtle scent of expensive perfume. Everything was from his world, not hers. But Isaac had called his company's private medical emergency service and arranged for a team to go directly to her apartment. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, still trying to process the surreal situation. Isaac looked out the window, watching New York pass by at high speed, thanks to the GPS that found routes that only experienced drivers knew. "Because you need help. But you don't know me." "Maybe not." He turned to her, and there was something vulnerable in his eyes. "But I recognize the pain of someone who is losing someone important." There was a story behind those words, Serena realized. A personal pain that he carried like an invisible scar. When they arrived at the housing project in Queens, Isaac insisted on going up with her. The contrast between him and the environment was stark. The designer suit in the hallways with peeling paint, the Italian shoes on the stairs with cracked steps. But he showed no embarrassment, only determination to help. Grandma Maria was conscious when they arrived, but clearly confused. The medical team Isaac had sent was already there, 2 uniformed paramedics who treated the elderly woman with care and respect. "Severe hypertension and signs of dehydration," one of them explained to Serena. "She needs to be hospitalized for stabilization and more detailed exams." "I don't have insurance," began Serena, but Isaac interrupted her. "Take her to New York Presbyterian Hospital. All expenses paid by me. Mr. Thorne, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can." His voice was firm but gentle. and you will accept it because your grandmother needs care now." While Grandma Maria was carefully taken to the ambulance, Peter and Paul looked at Isaac with a mixture of curiosity and shyness. He knelt down to the height of the boys, 15 years old, but who looked younger due to disguised malnutrition. "You're Serena's siblings?" he asked, his voice naturally softer. "We're twins," replied Paul, the more talkative one. "Are you really rich? Do you have a car like that?" Isaac smiled, a genuine smile that Serena had never seen before. "I'm lucky, yes." "And where do you guys go to school?" During the next 20 minutes, while they organized things to accompany Grandma Maria to the hospital, Serena watched Isaac interact with her brothers. There was a natural ease there, as if he understood what it was like to carry heavy responsibilities very young. At the hospital, while Grandma Maria underwent tests, Isaac and Serena sat in the silent waiting room. She was still processing how her life had completely changed in a few hours. "Why did you do all this?" she asked finally. Isaac was silent for a long moment, looking at his own hands. "My mother died 3 years ago," he said, his voice low. "Pancreatic cancer. Very fast, very aggressive." Serena felt something tighten in her chest. "I'm sorry." She was the only person who really knew me, who saw beyond the money, the success, all the construction I created around me. He stopped, as if the words were difficult to form. "In her last months, I distanced myself. I immersed myself in work, thinking it would be easier that way. When she died, I was in a meeting in London." The silence weighed between them. Serena understood then where that loneliness she recognized in his eyes came from. "I wasn't there when she needed me most," continued Isaac. "And since then, I closed myself off, built even higher walls, until I met you." "Isaac." "No," he interrupted her gently. "You don't need to say anything, just let me help with your grandmother. Let me do for less one certain thing." At that moment, Serena saw beyond the billionaire, beyond the power and success. She saw a man who carried the weight of guilt, who had punished himself with isolation for not having been present at the most important moment. "She won't forgive me if I accept charity," said Serena, but her resistance was weakening. "Then let's not call it charity." Isaac turned to her, and for the first time since they met, there was a small but genuine smile on his lips. "Let's call it an investment." "Investment in what?" "In getting to know you better." The blush rose to Serena's cheeks, but this time she didn't look away. There was something happening between them, something that defied all the social and economic barriers that should keep them apart. When the doctor finally appeared with good news, Grandma Maria was stable and responding well to treatment. Isaac insisted on driving them back home. On the way, he made an unexpected stop at a high-end pharmacy. "What are you doing?" asked Serena. "Buying the medicine your grandmother will need for the next few months," he replied, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Isaac, this is too much." "Serena." He stopped and turned to her, his hands gently touching her arms. "Please, let me do this. Not for what you can give me in return, but because for the first time in 3 years, I feel useful for something other than making money." At that moment, in front of the pharmacy, with the city lights beginning to turn on at dusk, Serena realized that she was falling in love with a man she shouldn't even know. And from the way he looked at her, she suspected that the feeling was reciprocated. But that only made everything more complicated. 2 weeks had passed since the day at the hospital, and Isaac found excuses to visit the daily grind almost daily. Serena had accepted that he pay for Grandma Maria's treatment, but established a condition. She would pay him back, even if it took years. Isaac didn't argue, understanding that her dignity depended on that promise. The conversations between them became longer, deeper. Isaac discovered that Serena wrote stories, and she discovered that he had studied literature before graduating in business administration. They talked about books, about abandoned dreams, about the strange loneliness that New York imposed, even in the busiest places. "Have you ever thought about publishing your stories?" asked Isaac on a rainy Thursday when the coffee shop was almost empty. Serena laughed, but there was sadness in the sound. Publishing costs money, Isaac, and I don't have time to chase after publishers who are going to reject me. Maybe I can. No. The answer came firm, but not harsh. That I need to conquer alone. Isaac admired that strength in her, the way she maintained her dignity even when life pressed her from all sides. It was a lesson in character that he had forgotten existed. It was that same afternoon that Serena's phone rang. Paul's voice was desperate. "Rena, Grandma's bad again, very bad. She can't breathe right and says her chest hurts." Isaac saw the color drain from Serena's face. Without hesitation, he got up. "I'm going with you." "Isaac, you don't need to." "I'm going with you," he repeated, and there was a firmness in his voice that did not allow discussion. This time, when they arrived at the hospital, Grandma Maria was in a more serious condition. The doctors took her straight to the ICU, explaining that she had suffered a small heart attack and needed constant monitoring. "She's stable, but the next 48 hours are critical," explained the cardiologist. "Someone from the family needs to stay here." Serena did not hesitate. "I'll stay." Isaac looked at her, her tense shoulders, her hands trembling slightly, the fierce determination in her eyes, and made a decision that would change everything. "I'll stay with you." "Isaac, you have a company to run." "The company can wait." He was already texting Helen, canceling meetings, transferring urgent decisions. "Your grandmother can't." They spent the night in the hospital corridors. Isaac had managed to get a private room for Serena to rest, but she refused to leave the ICU waiting area. He stayed by her side, and when she finally fell asleep from exhaustion in the uncomfortable chair, Isaac took off his suit jacket and covered her delicately. At 3 a.m, Serena woke up and found him still there, reading emails on his cell phone so as not to make noise. "Didn't you sleep?" "I couldn't." He put the phone away. "How are you?" "Scared," she admitted, her voice small in the darkness of the hallway. "She's all I have. She raised me after my parents died in the accident. If I lose her..." Isaac moved closer to the chair next to her, and when Serena started to cry silently, he pulled her close. She let herself be embraced, her head resting on his shoulder, feeling for the first time in years that she was not facing the world alone. "She's not going to die," said Isaac, his voice firm. "And even if the unthinkable happens, you're not alone. You have the twins, and now you have me." Serena raised her face to look at him, and in the soft light of the hospital hallway, something changed between them. The social distance, the class difference, the practical obstacles, everything disappeared. There were only two human beings, vulnerable and connected by something that transcended any logic. Isaac gently touched her face, his thumb wiping away a tear that had escaped. "Serena!" She said nothing, but she also did not pull away. When he leaned in slowly, giving her time to back away, Serena closed her eyes and let it happen. The kiss was soft, careful, loaded with emotions that neither of them had planned. When they separated, they remained close, their foreheads touching, breathing the same air. "This is crazy," whispered Serena. "I know," replied Isaac, "and I don't care." They spent the rest of the morning talking softly. Isaac telling about the pressure of growing up as heir to a business empire, about how he had gotten lost in the pursuit of success. Serena talked about her dreams of being a writer, about the responsibility of taking care of her family, about how she sometimes felt invisible in the world. "You're not invisible to me," said Isaac when the sun began to rise through the hospital windows. "You're the first real person I've met in years." At 7 a.m, the doctor brought good news. Grandma Maria had spent the night stable and was out of immediate danger. Serena cried with relief, and Isaac hugged her again, feeling a strange and deep happiness. It was when they left the hospital that everything began to fall apart. Across the street, a freelance photographer who covered the health sector for a business newspaper recognized Isaac Thorne. At first, he thought it was just a story about the billionaire doing charity at a public hospital. But when he saw the intimacy between Isaac and the young woman, the way he held her, the way he looked at her, the soft kiss he placed on her forehead before helping her into the car, The photographer realized that there was something much more interesting. The photos were taken in sequence. Isaac and Serena leaving the hospital holding hands, him opening the car door for her. The intimate moment when she turned to thank him and he touched her face with tenderness. 2 hours later, the images were on the desk of Roger Miller, the gossip editor of the Business Journal, known for his explosive stories about the personal lives of American tycoons. "Who is she?" Roger asked the photographer. "I'm still investigating. But from what I've found out so far, she works as a barista in a coffee shop downtown. Poor family. Lives in a low-income neighborhood." Roger smiled like a predator who had just found his prey. The tech emperor and the coffee shop Cinderella. This is going to be front page. "Chief, are you sure? Thorne has very good lawyers. Leave the lawyers to me." Roger was already imagining the headline. "I want everything about her, where she works, where she lives, family, past, and I want it for tomorrow." At that moment, while Isaac was driving Serena home and they were saying goodbye with the promise of seeing each other again at the coffee shop, neither of them knew that their lives were about to be brutally exposed to all of America. The storm was brewing, and they were right in the center of it. The story came out on the front page of the Business Journal's business section the next morning, with a headline that made Isaac drop his coffee cup when he saw it. "The Emperor in Love, Isaac Thorne, and the Secret Romance with a Barista from the Wrong Side of the Tracks." The photos occupied half a page. Isaac and Serena leaving the hospital, him touching her face with tenderness, the two of them holding hands. The story was cruel in its precision, detailing every aspect of Serena's life, where she worked, where she lived, her family's financial situation, even the fact that she had recently lost her second job. Sources close to the businessman confirm that the relationship has been developing for weeks, always in discreet encounters at the coffee shop where she works. Isaac Thorne, known for his reserved personal life since his divorce from Amanda Cartwright, seems to have found solace in the arms of the 27-year-old who lives with her sick grandmother and 2 younger siblings in a housing project in Queens. Isaac was in the office when Helen burst in without knocking, the newspaper in her hands and an expression like she had just seen a traffic accident. "Isaac, tell me this isn't true." He looked at the photo again. Serena looked so small and vulnerable next to him, so exposed. The anger he felt was instantaneous and violent. "I want to know who sold this information," he said, his voice dangerously low. "Isaac, that doesn't matter now. What matters is damage control." Helen closed the door and approached his desk. "The press is going to be all over this like vultures. Shareholders are already calling. And your Aunt Eleanor, what about my aunt? She's coming up now." As if it were a summons, the door opened and Eleanor Thorne entered the office like a hurricane of silk and indignation. At 65, she was the matriarch of the family since Isaac's mother's death, a woman who had dedicated her life to preserving the Thorne name and reputation. "Isaac, what disgrace is this?" She threw the newspaper on the mahogany table, her jewelry clinking with the abrupt movement. "A waitress? Some poor thing from the wrong side of the tracks? Watch your words, Aunt. Watch my words. You should have been careful." Eleanor approached, her eyes gleaming with fury. "Do you know what this represents? Decades building our reputation, our position in society, and you compromise everything because of an affair with a coffee server?" Isaac stood up, his height intimidating even his authoritarian aunt. "She has a name, Serena. I don't care about her name." Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. "I care about our family name. Do you think the Upper East Side is going to accept this? That our business partners will respect a man who gets involved with that? With what exactly? With a woman who has no class, education, or breeding. A woman who can only be interested in your money." The accusation hit Isaac like a punch, not because he believed it, but because he knew that other people would think exactly the same thing. Across town, Serena was living her own nightmare. She arrived at the Daily Grind and found a crowd of journalists at the door, cameras and microphones pointed at her like weapons. Serena, is it true that you're dating Isaac Thorne? How long have you known each other? What is your interest in the billionaire? Is it true that he's paying your family's medical bills? She managed to enter the coffee shop through the back door, but the damage was done. Mr. Paul was waiting for her with a somber expression. Serena girl, explain to me what's going on. With trembling hands, she showed him the newspaper she had bought on the way. Paul read in silence, his face closing with each line. Is this true? You are involved with this man? Mr. Paul, I can explain. Serena, do you understand the position this puts me in? He gestured towards the door, where the buzz of reporters could still be heard. My coffee shop has turned into a circus. Customers can't get in, and now everyone is going to think that I was facilitating these encounters. It wasn't like that. I never used work to... It doesn't matter how it was, it matters how it looks. Paul sighed heavily. Serena, you're a good employee, but I have a business to run. I can't have this mess here every day. Her heart stopped. Are you firing me? I'm giving you a week to resolve this situation. If the press doesn't stop showing up here, I'm going to have to make a decision. Serena left the coffee shop through the back, avoiding the journalists, but the tears were already falling. At home, the situation was no better. The twins had been harassed by reporters at school, and Grandma Maria, who was recovering at home, was confused and frightened by all the commotion. Rena, who is this man? Asked Grandma Maria, holding the newspaper with trembling hands. Why are they saying these things about you? How could she explain? How could she say that she had fallen in love with a man whose world was so distant from hers that she couldn't even imagine the consequences of meeting each other? The phone rang. It was Isaac. Serena, are you okay? I saw the news and... No, Isaac, I'm not okay. Her voice came out harsher than she intended. I'm about to lose my job. My family is being harassed by journalists, and all of America now thinks I'm a gold digger. I'm going to fix this. I have the best lawyers. You can't fix it, Isaac. Her frustration exploded. Don't you understand? For you, this is just another problem that money can solve. For me, it's my entire life falling apart. The silence on the other end of the line was long. Serena, I never wanted this to happen. I know. The anger turned into sadness. But it happened, and now I need to deal with the consequences of getting involved with someone from your world. Don't talk like we're from different planets. But we are, Isaac, and I was naive to think that this could work. She hung up the phone and sat on the couch next to her grandmother, feeling the weight of reality falling on her like an avalanche. Across town, Isaac was in his mansion when he received an unexpected visitor. Roger Miller, the journalist who had published the story, was in the living room, drinking a whiskey as if he were a guest. How did you get in here? Isaac descended the stairs, his voice icy. Private security is an interesting thing, said Roger, smiling. There's always someone willing to cooperate for the right price. Get out of my house now. Calm down, Isaac. We can call each other Isaac, can't we? After all, we're almost intimate now. Roger stood up, still holding the glass. I came to make a proposal. I have no interest in anything you have to say. Yes, you do. Because I have more photos. Much more compromising. Roger took an envelope out of his pocket. You two at the door of her apartment. You carrying her in your arms to the car when she fainted from exhaustion. Very romantic, by the way. Isaac felt his blood run cold. He remembered that night. Serena had worked a double shift and fainted from exhaustion when he went to pick her up. It had been a private, intimate moment. What do you want? Information access. I want to be the journalist who has exclusive access to the romance of the century. Roger smiled like a shark. In exchange, I control what is published. I protect the damsel. I protect you. Everyone wins. And if I refuse, then tomorrow all of America will see how the great Isaac Thorne lost his mind over a poor girl from the wrong side of the tracks. And your little girlfriend will become even more of a laughingstock. Isaac clenched his fists, but he knew he was cornered. Any false move could destroy not only his reputation, but also Serena's life. You have 24 hours to decide, said Roger, leaving the envelope on the table. Oh, and Isaac, your Aunt Eleanor called me today. It seems that not all the family is happy with your romantic choices. When Roger left, Isaac opened the envelope. The photos were intimate, snapshots of moments that should have remained private. And on the back of one of them, there was a handwritten message. She deserves something better than this exposure. Think about it. Isaac realized that he was trapped in a trap that was closing tighter and tighter. And the worst part was that Serena was being dragged along with him, paying a price she didn't deserve to pay. The pressure was increasing from all sides, and he began to wonder if the only way to protect the woman he loved would be by walking away from her completely. Isaac didn't sleep that night. He stayed in the mansion's library, the envelope with the photos on the table, thinking about all the possible consequences of each decision. At 5 in the morning, he made his resolution. He would not give in to Roger Miller's blackmail. He would find another way to protect Serena. But it was too late. The second story came out in the morning newspaper, even more devastating than the first. The Forbidden Love, new revelations about Isaac Thorne's romance. The photos showed intimate moments. Isaac carrying Serena unconscious to the car, him buying expensive medicines at the pharmacy, the two of them talking intensely at the hospital. The story painted a cruel picture. The billionaire playing savior with a vulnerable young woman who had seduced one of the richest men in the country. Sources close to the Thorne family revealed that the patriarch is deeply concerned about his nephew's involvement. Isaac has always been a responsible man, but this woman clearly took advantage of a moment of fragility, declared an unidentified source. Neighbors of young Serena Alvarez confirm that she has been seen frequently in luxury cars in recent weeks. The story continued with a detailed analysis of Serena's family's finances, revealing the debts, the recent unemployment, and insinuating that the relationship was a calculated strategy to improve her life. Serena read the story on her cell phone even before leaving home and felt the world collapse around her. The tears came instantly, not only because of the public humiliation, but because of how they distorted something that had been genuine and pure. "Serena?" Peter appeared at the bedroom door, his face worried. There are a lot of people at the front door, with cameras. She looked out the window and saw the crowd of journalists camped in front of the building. Some neighbors were also there, clearly enjoying the 15 minutes of fame that the situation provided. The phone rang. It was Mr. Paul. "Serena, I'm sorry, but I can't wait any longer." "You're fired." "I can't open the coffee shop with all this mess." She hung up without saying anything. In a few hours, she'd lost her job and her dignity. And the worst was yet to come. At 10 in the morning, the doorbell rang. Serena looked through the peephole and saw an elegant, middle-aged woman alone at the door. She didn't look like a journalist. "Who are you?" she asked through the door. "Eleanor Thorne, Isaac's aunt. I need to talk to you." Serena opened the door, immediately intimidated by the woman's imposing presence. Eleanor entered the small apartment, her eyes scanning every detail with an expression that mixed disdain and calculation. "Sit down, dear. We have a lot to talk about." Eleanor settled on the sofa as if she were in a 5-star hotel living room, not an apartment in a low-income neighborhood. She took an envelope out of her designer bag and placed it on the coffee table. "I'll be direct, Serena. You're destroying my nephew. I never wanted to. What you wanted or didn't want is irrelevant." Eleanor interrupted her with an imperial gesture. "What matters are the facts. Isaac is losing control of the company. Shareholders are questioning his ability to lead, and our family is being ridiculed in all social circles of New York." Serena felt a sharp pain in her chest. "Isaac didn't tell me anything about problems at the company. Of course not. He's blinded by passion." Eleanor leaned forward, her eyes as cold as ice. "But I'm going to open your eyes, dear. This relationship is going to end up destroying everything he's built. Did you come here to ask me to stay away from him? I didn't come to ask. I came to negotiate." Eleanor pushed the envelope towards Serena. "Inside this envelope is a check for $5 million. Enough to pay for all of your grandmother's treatments, put your siblings in a private university, and ensure that you never have to worry about money again." Serena looked at the envelope as if it were a venomous snake. In exchange for what? You disappear. Simple as that. Take your family and go to another state, another country if you want. Never talk to Isaac again, never appear in the media again, never exist again. You're offering me money to abandon the man I love. I'm offering a dignified way out of a situation that is only going to get worse. Eleanor's voice became harsher. Do you think this is going to have a happy ending? That you're going to live happily ever after, despite the social differences? That the Upper East Side is going to accept you as Isaac Thorne's wife? Each word was a precise stab. Eleanor knew exactly where to attack. He's already losing important allies, she continued. The company's board is questioning his decisions. If this continues, he could lose control of Thorne Investments. Everything he's built, everything his father left behind, will be destroyed because of you. No, Isaac didn't tell me, because he doesn't want you to feel guilty. But it's your fault, Serena. You're smart enough to understand that. Serena stood up, her legs trembling. I want you to get out of my house. Think carefully, dear. Eleanor stood up too, leaving the envelope on the table. $5 million is a generous offer, much more than you would earn in a lifetime of work. And Isaac will get over it. Men like him always get over it. When Eleanor left, Serena was alone with the envelope. $5 million, enough to solve all the family's problems, to give a dignified life to the twins, to guarantee the best treatment for Grandma Maria. But the price was Isaac. She was still processing the visit when the phone rang. It was Isaac. Serena, we need to talk. There are things you need to know. Your aunt was here. The silence on the other end was long and eloquent. What did she say? That you're losing everything because of me. That the company is at risk. That you're losing allies. Serena's voice was controlled, but he could feel the pain behind the words. Is it true? Isaac closed his eyes. He had tried to protect her from this pressure, but now he was being forced to face reality. Serena? Is it true, Isaac? Her voice became firmer. Just answer that. Are you having problems at the company because of me? Yes, he admitted, and felt something shatter between them through the telephone line. But I don't care. I care. The answer came quickly and firmly. I care, Isaac, because unlike what everyone thinks, I love you. And whoever loves doesn't destroy. Serena, don't. Your aunt offered me $5 million to disappear from your life. The revelation hit Isaac like a punch to the stomach. She had no right. She was protecting you. In her own way, but she was. Serena took a deep breath. Isaac, this can't continue. We both know that. No, I'm going to fix everything. I'm going to talk to the board. I'm going to... And then what? Are you going to spend the rest of your life proving that I deserve to be by your side? Am I going to spend the rest of my life being the poor girl who seduced the billionaire? Her voice was breaking. This isn't love, Isaac. This is obsession. Yours and mine. Serena, please. I'm leaving. The words came out firm, but he could hear the tears behind them. I'm going to take my family and leave New York, and you're not going to look for me. I love you. I love you too. That's why I'm leaving. The call was ended, and Isaac was alone in his office, feeling as if he had lost not only the woman he loved, but a fundamental part of himself. Across town, Serena looked at the envelope on the table. $5 million. The price of her dignity and Isaac's future. She didn't take the money. But she took her family and, that same night, disappeared from New York, leaving only a note. Some people weren't born to be in the same fairy tale. Be happy. Isaac only discovered that she had left when he went to her house the next day and found the apartment empty. Neighbors said that the family had left during the morning, taking only the essentials. He searched for weeks, hired private investigators, but Serena Alvarez had disappeared as if she had never existed. And Isaac realized that he had lost not only the love of his life, but also the only person who had made him feel truly human. The empire was saved, but he was completely destroyed. 3 months had passed since Serena had disappeared from New York. She and her family were in a small town upstate, Woodstock, where she managed to get a job at a local inn, and the twins could continue their studies in a decent public school. Grandma Maria was recovering well with the treatment that Isaac had paid for, the only link that still connected them, since Serena had adamantly refused to accept Eleanor's money. But even in the tranquility of the Catskill Mountains, Isaac remained constantly in her thoughts. At night, when she wrote in her notebook, now populated with melancholic stories about impossible loves, she found herself imagining how he was if he had overcome everything, if he had already found someone more suitable for his world. It was on a Thursday afternoon, while organizing the inn's reception, that everything changed. A guest had forgotten a magazine on the coffee table, and when Serena went to pick it up, she saw Isaac's face on the cover. The Lonely Emperor, How Isaac Thorne Lost Everything After the Love Scandal. With trembling hands, she read the story. Isaac was clearly dejected in the photos, his face thin, his eyes without the sparkle she knew. The report talked about how he had isolated himself completely, how he had lost important contracts, how the shareholders were questioning his leadership. But what shocked her the most was a quote. Sources close to the Thorne family revealed that Thorne has been obsessively looking for Serena Alvarez, hiring private investigators and offering rewards for information about the young woman's whereabouts. Serena felt her heart tighten. He was suffering as much as she was, maybe more, and somehow that made something awaken inside her. An anger that had been dormant during months of self-pity. That same night, she called Julia, her former colleague from the coffee shop. "Rena, where are you?" "Everyone is worried." "Julia, I need to ask you something. Do you remember the journalist who was hanging around the coffee shop after the first story came out?" "Roger. Yes, he came back several times. Why? Did he say anything about how he got the information?" Julia hesitated. "Look, Rena, he offered money to everyone. He wanted to know your hours, where you lived, about your family. But nobody said anything." "And Mr. Paul?" "Mr. Paul was furious. He kicked the guy out of the coffee shop. So how had Roger gotten such detailed information?" Serena remembered the surgical precision of the data in the story, things that only someone very close to the family could know. "Julia, do you have the phone number of any neighbors in my building?" "Of Mrs. Rodriguez, maybe." The next day, Serena called Mrs. Rodriguez, the gossipy neighbor who lived in the apartment next door. The conversation started with the usual greetings, but soon Serena directed it to what she really wanted to know. "Mrs. Rodriguez, do you remember those journalists who were at the front door of the building?" "I remember, dear." "What a mess." "But there was an elegant woman who came before them the day before. She said she was a friend of yours and wanted to know about you to make a surprise." Serena's blood ran cold. "An elegant woman?" "Yes, all dressed up with a designer bag. She asked a lot of questions about your family, about the times you left for work, about your grandmother's situation. I thought it was strange, but she said you were friends." Serena hung up the phone with a growing certainty. Eleanor had orchestrated everything. Not just the final blackmail, but the entire scandal. She had provided the information to Roger, had facilitated the photos, had coordinated the campaign to destroy any possibility of a relationship between Isaac and Serena. The anger that Serena felt was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It wasn't just for having been manipulated, but for having believed the lies. For having let them convince her that she wasn't worthy of Isaac's love. For having fled like a coward instead of fighting for what she felt. "Grandma," she said that night, while Grandma Maria drank her chamomile tea in the inn's backyard. "How do you know when it's worth fighting for something?" Grandma Maria looked at her granddaughter with the wise eyes of someone who had lived through many battles. "When you feel that you're going to regret more not having tried than having failed. And if people say you're not good enough?" "Honey!" Grandma Maria held Serena's hand firmly. "I raised you to be strong, not to be small. If you love that man for real, and if he loves you, then nobody else has the right to have an opinion." That same night, Serena made her decision. She was going to go back to New York, not to beg for forgiveness or to accept the crumbs of a secret love, but to fight for what was rightfully hers. To confront the lies and expose the truth. But first, she needed allies. The next morning, Serena called Helen Fitzgerald. She got the number through a detailed search on the internet, where she discovered that Helen was not only the CFO of Isaac's company, but also his friend from college. Helen Fitzgerald? Yes, who's speaking? My name is Serena Alvarez. I know you don't know me, but I really need to talk to you about Isaac. The silence on the other end was long. When Helen finally answered, there was caution in her voice. Serena, Isaac has been looking for you for months. He is, I know. I read about it. Helen, I need to meet you, but I can't go back to New York yet. There are things you need to know about how everything happened. About who was really behind this whole campaign against our relationship. What are you talking about? Eleanor Thorne. She orchestrated everything. The stories, the photos, the pressure on Isaac, and I can prove it. 2 hours later, Helen was on a flight to Woodstock. Curiosity and loyalty to her friend spoke louder than any caution. They met at a coffee shop in the center of town. And Serena told everything, from Eleanor's visit with the envelope of money to the discovery that she had provided information to Roger. Helen listened in silence, but Serena could see the anger growing in her eyes. That woman has always been controlling, said Helen finally. But this is family sabotage. Helen, is Isaac really losing control of the company? He is, but not for the reasons you think. Helen leaned forward. He's losing because he can't concentrate. Because he spent the last 3 months looking for you instead of taking care of business. Because he blames himself for letting you go. So he still loves you. Serena, he fired 3 private investigators because they couldn't find you. He bought an apartment in your old neighborhood just to make sure you would see if you came back. He's refused any social invitations for months. Helen paused. That man is destroyed. And the board? The shareholders, they're using the situation to push for changes. Eleanor is behind that too. She wants her son, Michael, to take control of the company. Serena began to understand the complete picture. It hadn't just been about destroying her relationship with Isaac. It had been about a coup in the company's power. Helen, would you help me with something? Depends on what it is. I want to confront Eleanor publicly. I want all of New York to know what she did. Serena took a deep breath. And after that, I want to talk to Isaac. But only after clearing my name and showing that I'm not the gold digger she painted. Helen smiled for the first time since she arrived. Serena, do you have any idea how to do that? I have some ideas, but I'm going to need your help. And maybe some contacts in the press. You want war, is that it? Serena thought about all the months of humiliation, the pain in Isaac's eyes, in the magazine photos, Eleanor's cruel manipulation, the way she had been forced to flee her own city. I don't want war, Helen. I want justice. The 2 women looked at each other across the table, and Helen saw something in Serena's eyes that she hadn't seen before, a fierce determination, a strength that had been polished by adversity. When do you want to start? Now. A week later, Helen had organized everything. The trap would be perfect. A black tie benefit gala at the Grand Hyatt with the presence of the Upper East Side elite, including Eleanor Thorne. Helen had managed to convince the organizers to include a special tribute that would be a surprise for all those present. Isaac was at the event at Helen's insistence, although he clearly didn't want to be there. He had lost weight in recent months, the suit now loose on his body. He sat at one of the main tables, distractedly poking at the food, when Helen took the stage. Good evening, everyone. Before we proceed with the auction, we would like to pay a special tribute to some people who have demonstrated how power can be used both to build and to destroy. A curious murmur swept through the hall. Eleanor, elegant in a haute couture dress, smiled confidently from the table where she was with Michael and other members of high society. Today, we want to talk about truth, manipulation, and the price that some people pay when they dare to love beyond social barriers. Isaac looked up, something in Helen's tone alerting him. That's when he saw a familiar figure taking the stage. Serena, wearing a simple but elegant navy blue dress, her hair tied in a sophisticated bun. She was different, more mature, more determined. But she was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. The hall fell into absolute silence. Isaac stood up instinctively, his heart racing. "Good evening," began Serena, her voice firm despite her nerves. "My name is Serena Alvarez. Many of you know me from the newspaper headlines. The poor girl who seduced Isaac Thorne, the gold digger from the wrong side of the tracks." Eleanor had paled, but she was trying to maintain her composure. "I am here today to tell the truth," continued Serena. "Not about my relationship with Isaac. That is private and is nobody's business. But about how someone in this room manipulated the press, provided private information about my family, and orchestrated a defamatory campaign to destroy any possibility of happiness between two people who loved each other." The murmur in the hall increased. Cell phones began to appear recording. "Eleanor Thorne." Serena turned directly to the table where she was. "You visited my neighbors days before the first stories came out. You provided detailed information about my family, my hours, our financial situation to the journalist Roger Miller." "This is ridiculous," began Eleanor, but Serena interrupted her. "I have recordings. Mrs. Rodriguez, my neighbor, recorded her conversation with the journalist because she thought it was strange that he knew so many personal details. Details that only you could have provided." Helen approached the microphone. "We also have bank statements. Eleanor Thorne paid $50,000 to Roger Miller, officially for communication consulting." Coincidentally, on the same day as the first story, Eleanor stood up abruptly. "You have no proof of anything." "Yes, we do," said a familiar male voice. "Roger Miller was entering the hall, escorted by two lawyers. And I am here to confirm everything." The journalist took the stage, clearly nervous but determined. "Eleanor Thorne contacted me, offering exclusive information about her nephew in exchange for money. She said she wanted to protect the family and that she would do anything to end his relationship." "You're lying!" shouted Eleanor, completely losing her composure. "I have the recordings of our conversations," replied Roger, "and emails where you detail exactly how you wanted me to approach the story to make Serena look like a gold digger." The hall was in an uproar. Flashes were flashing, agitated conversations echoed everywhere. But Isaac could only look at Serena, who remained on stage with an impressive dignity. "I came here tonight," said Serena, regaining control of the microphone, "not to humiliate anyone, but to restore my honor, to show that true love knows no social class, and that some people are capable of anything to keep their privileges intact." She took a deep breath and looked directly at Isaac, who had approached the stage. "Isaac Thorne is a man of integrity who had the courage to love beyond social prejudices. And I was a coward who fled instead of fighting for what I felt." Isaac went up on stage, completely ignoring the chaos around him. When he got close to Serena, he stopped, his eyes shining with emotion. "You came back," he said, his voice hoarse. "I came back to fight for what is ours," she replied. "If you still want it." Isaac didn't respond with words. He simply pulled her into his arms and kissed her in front of all the Upper East Side elite, flashes exploding around them, but neither of them cared. When they separated, Isaac took the microphone. "Eleanor," he said, looking directly at his aunt, who was now being escorted out of the hall by security. "You are fired from all positions in the company and banned from any family event." He turned to the audience, still holding Serena against him. "This woman taught me what true love is. She taught me that real wealth is not in the banks, but in the courage to be authentic. And if anyone here has a problem with that, they can leave now." No one moved. On the contrary, someone started to applaud. Soon, the entire hall was standing, applauding the couple. 6 months later, Isaac and Serena were married in a simple ceremony in the same church where Grandma Maria had been married decades before. It was not a fairy tale wedding with hundreds of guests. It was an intimate celebration with the people who really mattered. Peter and Paul were the page boys. Grandma Maria cried with happiness, and Helen was Serena's bridesmaid. The press tried to turn the event into a circus, but this time they were prepared, with discreet security and a clear agreement: respect for privacy or legal consequences. Serena did not become a socialite. She continued writing, and Isaac used his contacts to help her publish her first book, a collection of stories about love and courage that became a bestseller. She opened a small publishing house aimed at new talent from low-income neighborhoods, giving voice to stories that would normally not be heard. Isaac completely restructured the company, creating a scholarship program for young people from low-income neighborhoods and a microcredit fund for small entrepreneurs. He discovered that using his wealth to change lives gave much more satisfaction than simply accumulating more zeros in his bank account. 2 years later, when Sophia, the couple's first daughter, was born, Grandma Maria held her great-granddaughter in her arms and whispered, "See, honey? Sometimes life gives us second chances when we have the courage to fight for them." And Isaac, watching his wife hum softly to their daughter on the porch of the house they had built, neither mansion nor low-income neighborhood, but a real home, finally understood that he had found the only wealth that really mattered, a family built on true love, without masks or pretensions. Serena had proven that Cinderella didn't need the glass slipper to win her prince. Sometimes it was enough to have the courage to fight for the love she deserved, and the wisdom to recognize that some battles were worth every scar they left.